Now, I mean, I don't shop at Saks Fifth Avenue, but um,
Mm-hmm.
Jewel. Yeah, I don't shop at Saks Fifth Avenue, but I mean, if like having nice shopping and good mass transit near where you live raises the value of where you live, which means that nicer shit comes around there. Like, haven't you noticed that like really nice places tend to bring up an area? Like a nice movie theater brings up the area. Nice restaurants bring up the area. A nice recreation area brings up the area. Like, and the amount of money I pay in property taxes is not commensurate with the services that are where I live. So that's the price you pay, folks, for living in an area where people had no fucking vision. Anyway, we're live with another
It could have
episode of
been
BS
worse.
Busters. Yeah, it could have been a lot worse. We managed to escape a lot of it. We're live with another episode of BS Busters. Kanoshi Abominito may be joining us. He probably won't. He's probably out hanging with his family on Father's Day. My parents are my stepfather is dead and my father is a piece of shit. So I took my mother out for Father's Day. So with that being said, Jewel, introduce yourself, and then we'll dive into it.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, to the BS Busters and the Week podcast on, of all things, a new holiday. I am Joy Eli Moonstar and E3 Round 2.
Yeah. This is round two of E3. This is just the last like dreads, like surprises that we saw, surprises that we didn't see. I can say with absolute
We're,
confidence.
we're likely going to be talking about what we didn't.
Well, I mean, I can confidently say that nothing Nintendo showed surprised me at this year's E3. Like I wasn't like, oh my god, I didn't see that coming. I knew they were going to mention Shin Megami Tensei 5 because it's probably coming out this year. Like before going in, I'm like, it's probably coming out this year, and they have to mention it because it's been way too damn quiet. There was a rumor going around. Oh my god, they're going to show Metroid Prime 4. No, they ain't. Not when they literally had to reboot that game 2 years ago. I mean, I would be surprised if that game was in a state where you could show it and it wouldn't look like shit at this point in time.
I was going
Even
to
now,
say, it would be basically an alpha.
not even alpha. I don't even think they have an alpha build of that game. Not when they had to throw everything out and start from scratch 2 years ago. And typically speaking, like a game like that, like you're looking at a 5 year development cycle. Um, yeah. To be honest with you, I don't even think we're going to see Metroid. I don't think Metroid Prime. If Metroid Prime comes out during the life cycle of the Switch, it's probably going to be a cross generation game coming out for the Switch and whatever the next console is. Because I just don't see that game coming out while the Switch is a thing, like Nintendo's sole console. I just don't see it happening. And I know some people are going to be like, but how could you? Come on, man. 5 year development, and they just started, and the Switch is 5 years old, and they're probably gonna let the Switch run another 2 years, which means that that game, if you're lucky, it's gonna be cross generation. But the way I feel about it is, why should they sacrifice that game's fidelity and what they really need to do to make it like really pop to get it to run on the Switch? When they probably do better pushing it back and putting it on the next console if they're smart.
Uh, if you ask me, I actually be curious if that can happen, but if it happens to go to the next system, I'm not going to be I'm not going to be arguing about it. I
I
mean,
mean, because
if anything, I argue about it when it happened to Breath of the Wild.
I mean, you would think, yeah, but Breath of the Wild isn't a. I mean, actually, no, I shouldn't say it's not a graphically demanding game because, like I said, the first time I've ever played a Legend of Zelda game that crashed on me on a Nintendo home console was Breath of the Wild on the Switch. And that game, there's parts of Breath of the Wild where it's chugging on the Switch. So I could imagine in Breath of the Wild, like the type of shit you have to do in a Metro, like the type of shit that they would have to put into a Metroid Prime 4, I don't think you could do that without it running like ass on the Switch. So why would you take a series that really needs to blow shit out the water and be like, oh shit, it's amazing what you were able to do with this game. Like, why would you sacrifice that game to get it to run on a system that is on, at this point, the Switch is getting towards the latter half of its life cycle. So just put it on the next thing, that so it doesn't have to uh, be compromised a lot to get it to run. And I'd be okay with that because I don't want to play a shittier version of Metroid Prime 4 so that it could run on the Switch. Um,
I I at least want the game at all at this point, since some things are good to wait for. I said some things are good to wait for, but it's not easy.
I don't mind it waiting. I'm just like, I just don't want to play I don't want them gimping that game to get it to run on the Switch, and then because if they gimp it, because I mean they did the same with Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild really was made for the Wii U, and then they took out parts of the game to get it to run on. They took out parts of the game to get it to run on the fucking Switch for console parity, and that, to me, that didn't like. I mean, that kind of that didn't like, I wasn't impressed with that. Let me put it that way. All right, because you can see where Breath of the Wild, if they had just kept it on the Wii U with the Wii U features, would have been a truly great game, like amazingly good. And then because they nerfed it to get it to run on, like took out features to make it have console parity with the Switch, it's like the cool shit that could have been in the game just doesn't exist. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, I at least get where you're coming from. I'm just feeling like it's like, as long as the game is not entirely destroyed because of being on two systems, that I could actually work with it.
Yeah.
Which is why I would say with Twilight Princess of all things.
Yeah, well, the thing about Twilight Princess is, to me, like, I prefer the Wii version of Twilight Princess over the GameCube version.
GameCube.
I know everyone likes the GameCube version, but the GameCube. The only thing that I'll say that the GameCube version has over the Wii version for me is, um, that stupid ass game that you have to play outside of the fishing mini game area on the Wii. You have to use the motion control. Motion control on the Wii is like, if it's for something that has to be really precise, unless it uses Wii Motion Plus, it's ass. On the GameCube, you can just use the GameCube controller for that, and it works relatively well. On the Wii, you have to use the Wiimote, and it's just a pain in the ass to do that. But aside from that, just like, to me, the Wii version is just easier to get into, and the finishing moves are more interesting. It's just, to me, it's just a more interesting game. But, to each his own. But, I mean, there's no substantial difference between both of the consoles. Like, the Wii and the GameCube are virtually, in terms of power, are very similar to one another. But, that's just me. Um, but with all that being said, let's talk about um, the games that were a surprise to us. So, what was a game that was a surprise to you coming out of this year's E3? Doesn't have to be restricted solely to Nintendo. It could be any game announced that you're like, I did not see that coming.
It was honestly hard for me because, at least as far as trying to figure out some of this, but I actually felt the the only big surprises for me were the Mario Party, which I didn't expect at all. I mean, seriously, they could have just left it be at to so we could forget about it and then raise it back up. And I think it was something from the Before Digital, that wild game that was going on all about, when they with I'm trying to get the name, so excuse me there.
Uh,
Huh?
no, go ahead.
I think that was about it because it it looked like it was entertaining to watch, like like watching watching Valorant, but actual but actually works.
Well, I mean, the people who like Valorant seem to think it's a good game. Uh, I'm not really into multiplayer first-person shooters all that much, aside from maybe Halo
For
back in the day.
for
Yeah,
me,
I was a Halo
I was
fan
going to
back
say
in the
that
day.
eh, figures. I was saying that for me, I like watching those battles because because I can only imagine how much of how much of a steady hand you need for some of those actions.
No, actually, I was a Halo fan
Uh,
back in the day,
I
not
mean,
because of Xbox anything. I actually liked first person shooters back in the day because I played Quake a lot back in the day and Tribes and stuff like that. Like I played first person competitive first person shooters back in the day, but Unreal Tournament stuff like that. Um, and Halo, like I was like, oh, this is a fun game. I did not get into Halo 2 because I didn't own an Xbox. Because Halo 1 was a multi-plat on PC and
Hello, guys.
was a multi-plat on PC and the original Xbox. Um, Halo 2 and Halo 3 were console exclusives at the time. Now I think you can get the Halo collection that has all those games on, you know, on everything. But it wasn't like that back. But what were you saying? Sorry.
I was saying that if anything, that's about it for what I thought that was a bit of a surprise, and that's because I like watching the people do some of these stunts on those multi on those multiplayer games.
Yeah, it can be kind of cool to watch people play online multiplayer games. I'm not really into it, but I can see why people would be like, yeah, this is great. My
Yeah,
favorite. Well, I mean, like, I like to listen to real play Shadowrun podcasts. D&D, I can't do it. But Shadowrun, I love listening to people play real play Shadowrun podcasts. Um, I'm a fanboy like that. Uh, so I can see the appeal that some people have for playing online
eh,
multiplayer, for watching people play
yeah.
online multiplayer games.
For me, it depends on the game. If it's a team based game or really good or really good fighting game, then then watching some of these people go watching some of these people play in a team to see how gelling they are together, or how somebody likes to go into salt makers. That's actually pretty fun to watch. happen.
Yeah,
But otherwise, it's usually not as entertaining.
yeah, I like that. Yeah, I'm not against that. Like, it just for me, it's a case by case basis because there's some games where I would never want to see someone play um, competitively. Like, I'm not one of those people that wants to watch people play strategy games competitively. I mean, yet in Korea, that's a big thing. Like, that's a huge thing in Korea. People playing MMOs and shit real time. I remember watching that old episode of South Park where all the kids got addicted to World of Warcraft, and so while
And
their
it
bodies,
became its own mini quest.
yeah, while their bodies were slowly getting fat and out of shape, like in the game they're like leveling up and everything, and there was this whole thing where they just had to kill this one troll who's just going around murdering the shit out of people.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he's part of the Horde, mind you.
No, I think he was just a random dude just going around shanking people with a knife. But the thing is like the idea of there being like an actual real play MMO where people just like spliced in people talking, I think that would be a really cool like kind of like little show where people are going on quests and like try and make it into an actual TV show. Do like 30-minute, doing like 22 minutes plus commercials. I think you could pull that off. But I mean, who wants to do that? Like, who wants to put all that time and energy into recording all that footage and splicing in people talking and stuff like that? Like, um,
You'd be surprised, but
you know.
yeah.
But that's just my opinion. Anyway, so yeah, the game that was a surprise to me. Well, I mean, Psychonauts 2 wasn't a surprise to me because I knew they were going to mention it because it's coming out this year. But seeing just how fucking good the game looks, I was like, why don't you guys take this engine and remake the first Psychonauts in this engine? Because the first Psychonauts is kind of rough. It's a fun game, but it's kind of like a little on the rough end. But Psychonauts 2 looked great. Shin Megami Tensei 5. I'm gonna keep it real. Initially, I was not really into the art style because I'm like, oh man, they're still using the same fucking art style. But then I saw where they
Took it.
well, I saw that they're basically combining shit from Shin Megami Tensei 4, a little bit of Persona in there. So there's some good stuff in there. Um I wasn't really surprised, but I was happy to see Super Monkey Ball, the collection, like the first 3 games. Even though, I mean, if you're a Monkey Ball fan, everyone knows that the first one's like the best. The first Monkey Ball is the best. The second one's okay. Like it's not. Oh, I shouldn't say it's okay. It's not as good as the first one, especially the party games like Monkey Golf, Monkey Target. Not as good. Monkey Target in Super Monkey Ball 2 is not as good as Monkey Target in the first game. So that's kind of a problem. Um, I was surprised by a lot of the indie games because some of them look really good. Like that game that's basically uh, like they always run the bounty hunter game. We have the three-armed bounty hunter chasing people down. I'm like, this is a very interesting looking title. But the indies can take chances because they have to take chances. Versus third.
Versus the safe shots.
Yeah, well, first party games have to be all, you know, they have to play it safe. Like Nintendo can't say, okay, we're releasing a new, we're doing a spin-off of Legend of Zelda, and the main character is going to be the gameplay is going to be turn-based combat. Like that just wouldn't fly.
I was about to say that actually would surprise some people.
I mean, I'd probably play it because I'm like, oh, it's something different, but it would be like,
Yeah.
you know, it'd be like, okay, this still isn't where it needs to be. Or we're gonna make a new Mario game, but it's a first-person shooter. Mario, all the power-ups, all of the fireball and ice ball and electric ball power-ups are like you're shooting a gun, pew pew. Like that would be like, okay, this is not what I'm used to. So I mean, I can understand where people are like, okay, we don't really want to take a chance. We want to stay. You know, everyone wants everything to stay the same.
I was gonna say I'd be iffy about changes if it doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, I mean, I can understand after a while you getting tired. If you're a developer, you get tired of doing the same shit over and over again, or you push the envelope so far that it's like, where can you go from here? Like, kind of like Donkey Kong Country, the Rare series, kind of peaks at the second game. And from the second game, it's like, where can you go from there? So then they do the third game where it's just kind of like a shotgun approach to level design. Some of the levels are great, some of the levels are forgettable. It's still, I mean, overall the game is still fun, but you can tell some of the levels didn't get as much polish as some of the other levels. Whereas almost every level in Donkey Kong Country 2 is like, damn, this is really well crafted. So another surprise I saw was an announcement for Outer Worlds 2. Love the first game. It felt like a kind of like a more narrowly focused Fallout in space. And I mean, I hope the next game has a bigger budget and they can make bigger, bigger stuff going on. That would be awesome. Um, but that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. So, anyway, any other surprises you saw that were, that you're like, I can't believe this shit is...
I was trying to keep out... I tried to keep out the obvious, because, if anything, the most obvious for me, Metroid 5. I mean, if anything, I didn't expect it at all.
Anyway, I was surprised that they showed a render trailer, a conceptual render trailer of Starfield to the Bethesda fanboys. I'm not surprised that PlayStation fanboys are getting mad that Starfield is a Microsoft console exclusive. Like, they're like, how could you do
Welcome
this?
to the club.
I'm like, that's like when I hear Sony fans complain that, you know, why, like, you know, like, Bethesda is a first party studio now, which means their games, especially their big ticket blockbuster games, are going to be exclusive to that console. You know, hey, you want to play Legend of Zelda, you got to play that shit on a Nintendo console or handheld. That's it. Those are your choices.
Yeah.
Either take the deal or get the fuck out. That's how it rolls.
I was gonna say that I kind of of feel a little bit weird. I kind of feel like well, what was it? Oh yeah, I kind of feel like when Bethesda got bought, even though they go first party, quote unquote, it might feel a bit second or third party because well, Microsoft has released everything onto PC as well.
Well, I mean, the thing is, Bethesda was a PC developer first, and they build their games for PC first, and they port down to get it to run on lesser hardware. That's why their games on console are so broken. The problem is that their games on PC are broken too. But with PC, they brute force a lot of getting them to run. They brute force, like, you know,
Yeah, that's the reason why I don't feel that much changed. At least with
it didn't. The only
at
difference is
least
that,
with Bethesda.
I mean, it did and it didn't. What has changed is that Bethesda doesn't have to spend resources and time making a game for 5 different SKUs. Because remember, they were making this game for PS4, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, Xbox One, and PC. That's 5 SKUs. Now they only have to worry about 2. PC and the Xbox Series X and the Xbox One. And considering that the Xbox Series X and the Xbox One share a lot of the same architecture and they're both like basically little micro gaming PCs, really they only have 1 SKU to worry about with minor variations. That being said, knowing that this is Bethesda and they have a penchant
And
for releasing
and
broken, buggy pieces of shit, I'm not holding out hope.
and you wonder why I gave the why I gave best presentation to Nintendo this year because I'm not trusting Bethesda.
Well, the thing is like for people who really like Bethesda games, it was a major coup because I wasn't looking at it from the point of view of, I wasn't looking at it from the point of view of like you know, knowing the history of the studio. Because the fact of the matter is that to me, like Nintendo had a mediocre uh, E3 conference. And when I say mediocre, I don't mean mediocre in terms of a pejorative statement like, you know, that those grades were mediocre. I mean of like middling fair quality. It wasn't like, you know, because I mean, if you take some of Nintendo's better E3 offerings since they started the directs, this isn't even the top 10. Like it wasn't even. I wouldn't even put it.
I was trying to say that I'm looking at the E3 that showed up right here now.
Yeah,
I mean, if I look at past, I would agree with you, but I'm looking at what's today.
I'm looking at what's today too, and this year.
And you're BS, and you're full of BS if you think that Microsoft and Bethesda got that.
I think that Microsoft's conference was overall better this year than Nintendo's conference. Because, like I said, they had more surprises to me, more things I didn't see coming, more games I'm looking forward to coming out. And Nintendo really, aside from one game, really didn't have any surprises for me where I was like, I didn't see that coming. And I mean, but here's the thing: as the discrimination of low expectations, I was expecting, because typically speaking, Nintendo blows it out of the park, or at least they taking a more critical eye and not being a fanboy and just giving them high marks just because I like the company.
Your standards are lower than mine, buddy.
No, I'm talking in terms of Nintendo. Taking a step back and looking at them critically, typically speaking,
That's what I mean.
you can hope for Nintendo at least giving you 85, 88, at least 90%. You're going to have a good conference. This year, it was like an 83, which is a C. It's, It's not like terrible, but we've seen them do much better. What they showed, like I said, like a lot of those games, like I'd say 2 of those games were mini game collections. And I mean, mini game collections are cheap and easy to make. They are very like I guarantee you they probably didn't start they probably started working on those mini game collections at least 18 months ago to a year ago. Because they're I mean, because you can compartmentalize the work and just hand it out bit by bit. So they don't take a lot of resources to create. Um, so for that, I'm like, okay,
WarioWare, I could agree with you on.
no, just period. They don't take like they already had the engine for Mario Party, and so all they really had to do for that was just basically come up with mini games or port existing mini game ideas over in the new in the engine for the base game, make it look a little bit prettier.
I get
Boom.
you. I was just saying that.
Like it's just it's half-assed.
I was saying that. I was saying if you want half A, then look to WarioWare. That's more half A than Mario Party.
I already said if it's a mini game collection, it's half-assed. Mario Party isn't as half-assed as WarioWare because all WarioWare is just mini games. Mario Party at least has the boards, but even then, like the boards are just kind of like a vehicle to give you mini games. You know, it's like it's kind of like this. The mini games are peanut butter. Now, you can either stick your finger in the peanut butter and like lick the peanut butter directly off your hand, or you can take a piece of celery and stick it in the peanut butter and eat the peanut butter off the celery. The celery analogy is Mario Party, whereas taking it off your hand is WarioWare. Either way, you're mostly there for the peanut butter. The celery is just a vehicle for the peanut butter. The Mario Party boards are just a vehicle for all these fucking mini games. WarioWare just takes the rag off the bush. Look, it's mini games, bitch. That's what we do.
It's funny that I'm the only person. It's funny that I'm not one for peanut butter and celery. I'm usually peanut butter and bread. That's boring.
I mean, people are like, I want to feel a little bit healthy, peanut butter and celery. Ants on a log, peanut butter, celery, and raisins. My point is this. Nintendo during their presentation, they showed off 2 mini game collections which are cheap and easy to make. Like they're very easy to make because okay, I understand COVID, people had to compartmentalize, a lot of people stayed home. Well, they could easily parcel that shit out to the developers and say, I need you to make this type of game, this type of mini game, this type of mini game, and then send it to the executive producer or the producer director. They give them feedback, and then they send it to their the designers send it to the developers. They ameliorate everything, adulterate it, bring it all together, and boom, you have your game. It's cheap, okay? It's very easy to do those types of games. Then they showed off, a Tekken character coming to Smash Brothers. Now, for people who are into Smash Brothers, that's great. The problem is, I haven't liked the last 2 iterations of Smash Brothers because they focus too much, in my opinion, on multiplayer. And to the detriment of other things. But that's me. Other people like that. Good for you.
I was about to say, I take both single player and multiplayer.
Well, the thing is,
and both of them were pretty good for me.
I never had siblings, so whenever I had fighting games, I had to really get into the single player. As an aside, Wednesday, you asked why would you start with a later game in the series versus the first game? I have the perfect series where that makes sense. Street Fighter. No one in their right mind should ever play the first Street Fighter. The first Street Fighter is hot buttered ass. Never play the first Street Fighter. And I'd say the same thing about Metroid. Don't play the original Metroid. Play Zero Mission. It's much better. But anyway.
I'm gonna say, in that Zero Mission is kind of Metroid 1 already.
It is. It's a better version of Metroid 1. because the original Metroid is an esoteric mess of a game. Um, for what it gave the industry, it's great, but in terms of just straight up like what that game is capable of, it's kind of not that good. Kenoshi, how's it going? Thank you for joining us. If you would like to introduce yourself, then we can dive further into the rest of this cast. You can, sir, if you so choose. Okay, I guess he's busy.
Oh, it's Kenoshi.
Oh, go
Kenoshi
ahead.
Abominito. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Kenoshi Abominito, and glad to be on another one of these BS Busters.
Glad to have you. We were just talking about how the reason I felt that Nintendo's E3 wasn't better than Microsoft's this year. Now, maybe next year's E3, the order will be restored and Microsoft will once again have shitty conferences. But this year, Nintendo's conference was a C. Microsoft had like barely a B. It wasn't much, just enough to kind of nudge it a little bit above Nintendo this year. To me, that's the thing. Opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one. But yeah, so yeah, to me, plus Microsoft had more. Microsoft had something to prove at this year's E3, whereas Nintendo typically, since the Switch has been selling gangbusters, Nintendo has no incentive to prove anything. They have nothing to prove to anyone but themselves. And because of that, they're like, well, shit, we could do something amazing, but what incentive do we have to do anything? You people are going to buy the shit anyway. Which, I mean, as a business, you want to be in a position where you don't have to do much to make money. Like, in capitalism, businesses want to do the least amount of effort and resource output in order to maximize the amount of input they get from their customers. So, I mean, it's a good business decision. As a gamer, though, it sucks because you're getting Nintendo just kind of sitting on their ass, resting on their laurels a bit. But
yeah,
I mean, like basically in a perfect world, you want to see Nintendo where they're trying but not struggling. You get what I'm saying?
yeah.
That's kind of a narrow bridge.
Yeah, it's a sweet spot. It's. I mean, we're all adults here, and this is an adult cast. It's kind of like having sex, and you and they are at the finish line at the same time. It's kind of like that. It's a very difficult road to hoe, but when you nail it, it's awesome.
Yeah. Reason why I said it's a narrow bridge, a very narrow bridge that I think that some people are holding way too seriously.
And for more of a safe for work option, it's like going out to eat and eating just enough to where you feel full, but you have enough room for dessert and you don't feel like shit afterwards. It's that sweet spot. And sometimes Nintendo can hit that sweet spot. Like with the GameCube and the SNES, they hit that sweet spot. Nintendo was trying, but they weren't struggling. Trying, but not struggling. The N64, Nintendo was struggling. They didn't act like it, but they were struggling. The Wii, Nintendo got complacent and lazy. Especially towards the end of the Wii's life cycle, Nintendo was like, we ain't got to do shit. Kiss my ass. And you got, the Wii U, which personally, my favorite console of the 8th gen period is the Wii U. I love that console. But Nintendo got like very arrogant leading into the Wii U with the success of the Wii, to the point where they actually turned around and let third parties just stick it in their pooter.
If anything, they didn't have any games ready for the Wii U, so they had to depend on the thirds.
And that's where they fucked up. Look, you can trust third parties. The only company I've seen third parties go out of their way to support and help is Sony. And that's because Sony was writing them big fat checks for exclusivity deals and to help bolster their games coming out. So
Yeah,
at least
and
I suspect. I don't have proof of it. I'm being
facetious.
well, I'm making a supposition. I don't have any evidence to support my supposition. I could in fact be wrong. But it doesn't seem that there's a coincidence that when the first few years of the PS3, the Sony's PlayStation division was losing tons of money, and yet they were still getting games and selling like shit, and they were still getting games coming to that system, and some great games.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Where Nintendo's the Wii U was selling like shit, and it got shit. Aside from Nintendo, from the games Nintendo put on it, it got shit on by everybody.
Yeah.
So. But anyway, back to what I was saying. Yeah. So for me, this year's E3, I just felt that Nintendo just was kind of being complacent and safe, and they really had nothing to prove. The Switch is the highest selling 9th gen console thus far, and at this point, I don't see the PlayStation or the Xbox Series X catching up. So at this point, like, Nintendo's like, fuck it, we can sit on our balls and no one can do anything. Whereas Microsoft came into this year's E3, they had shit to prove. They were like, okay, we have to show that we can do something. And they did. They actually showed shit that was interesting and fun. Like, they showed Psychonauts 2 and a new Outer Worlds and fucking Halo Infinite, which the last time they showed it, people turned Craig the Brute into a fucking meme. And they actually like, hey, look at this. The multiplayer is free. The base game's $60. I'm like, okay, you guys came out. You had something to prove. You showed it. Which is more than I can say Nintendo did, which they played it safe. They showed a lot of shit that I kind of knew was coming. The only thing that was kind of surprise for me was Metroid Dread, because I didn't think they'd call it Metroid Dread. I kind of suspected they show a 2D Metroid, because 2D games are relatively easy to make. And quick. There's a quick turnaround for them. So, I mean, I was not really surprised by anything they did. And it was them playing it, And at the very end, they showed some in-game footage plus some cutscenes spliced in of Breath of the Wild 2. And if I hadn't been burned by Breath of the Wild 1, I would be hyped up about it and say that Nintendo had the best conference. But after getting hyped up on the original Breath of the Wild and playing that game and going into fights where I'm in the middle of fighting a fucking Lionel and I'm losing, I went into the fight with like 8 weapons on me. I walked out of the fight with 3 intact and like had 5 shields, only had 1 walking out the fight. Like, I just don't, only like 4 dungeons in the game. Well, 5 if you count Hyrule Castle. I'm like, there's a lot of issues with that game that I don't think they're going to fix with the sequel. So I'm not all hyped up about Breath of the Wild 2 like other people. I'm like, it might be good. Probably will just be more Breath of the Wild. Just a bigger world. So, I pre-ordered Breath of the Wild 1 on Amazon. I will not be pre-ordering Breath of the Wild 2. I'm going to wait and see. And the slap in the face of that half-assed Legend of Zelda 35th anniversary is just... That was the icing on top for me. I was like, you know what? You guys don't give a fuck. Well, I don't give a fuck either. Yeah.
I thought that little handheld was cute and kind of works, but I will admit, Link got leftovers this year.
I mean, even if they had said, "Hey, we're bringing over an N64 Virtual Console with Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask," I would have been like, "Okay, that's cool." But just that fucking handheld, that's it. Like Mario got a trip to Cancun with hookers, hookers blow, a board game, 2 new games, and fucking just a whole bunch of shit. And Link just take this fucking Game and Watch. And guess what? We're not even gonna put the best version of those games on the Game and Watch. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and the reason it pisses me off is because I've seen Nintendo do better. So many times I've seen them do better. And you know, but anyway, so do you have any games that were surprises for you at this year's E3, Kanoshi?
I'd say Metroid Dread. That was the biggest. That's the biggest surprise I saw.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
They were like, "This is the first new Metroid game since for 19 years." I'm like, "Fuck, I'm old."
Yeah, that's crazy.
I'm like, "Shit." The last new Metroid game I played was 20 years ago. It was almost 20 years ago. I was 15 at the time. I was a young lad playing my Game Boy Advanced. I never had a Game Boy SP. I still don't have a Game Boy SP. I have a DSi that's been modded to run Raspberry Pi, but I don't have a. Well, it's not really been modded. It's just a fucking. It's a DSi shell with a Raspberry Pi inside. And it plays third, fourth, and fifth gen games pretty well.
Yeah.
Anything else was a surprise for you? You were like, I did not see that shit coming, or you thought it was coming, but when you finally saw it, you're like, that looks better than it has any business being.
No, not this year. Maybe except that undefined Left 4 Dead 4 or 3 game. But other than that, I keep forgetting the name of it.
Back for Blood.
Back for Blood, yeah.
You know that's a Vampire the Masquerade game.
Oh.
It doesn't look like it, does it?
No.
I was like, this doesn't look like a Vampire the Masquerade game. Because I've played a lot of Vampire the Masquerade tabletop game, but this shit is not. Close to it. I was surprised by the Halo multiplayer being free. The Halo Infinite multiplayer being free.
Yeah, I'm surprised in that too. Hopefully they can deal with other free-to-play first-person or third-person shooters fail to do as it pertains to being a free-to-play game.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Hearing it go free to play, I'm like, okay, I'm glad that people who are just into Halo just for the multiplayer are getting what they want. But, I mean, I think they're going to monetize the shit out of it and turn it into like something like a Destiny or something, where they're going to like sell seasons and shit. And like extra DLC and cosmetics and shit.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, look, listen. I mean, I never was into Halo's multiplayer. Like, I played it a little bit on the first game because it was on PC. But after that, I was like, I'm not really feeling it. I liked Tiny Tina's Wonderland announcement. That was cool. Um, it's got melee weapons. You can create your own character. Something new for Borderlands. Um, so I guess that's cool. The one cool thing I saw was the deep dive they did Thursday for Psychonauts 2. The game looks fucking awesome. Like, I don't know why more developers want to make realistic graphics when if you have stylized graphics, the shit looks good much longer. You know? I don't know why people don't go with more stylish looking things. But that's my own personal opinion. But any other surprises you guys saw before we move on to games that we wanted to see at this year's E3 but they didn't show? Nothing? Okay then. What games did you guys want to see at this year's E3 but you didn't? You were like, man, I wish this kid had worked. Had been.
The only one I was hoping to at least get some news about would be Bayonetta 4. I mean, Bayonetta 3.
Yeah.
Because I already knew Metro was held back.
Well, they held it back 2 years ago. They like Nintendo's like, look.
I mean, they held it back because it just restarted.
Well, yeah. Well, in 2019, they said they were like, yeah, Metroid Prime 4 has been. We had to restart development, and we moved it over to retro. And I'm like, yeah, why would you give that game to Namco Bandai in the first place? That makes no sense to me. Like, because Namco Bandai doesn't make games like that. Like, you want to make a Tales game, you want to make a generic anime-esque hack and slash game, like Death Eater 1, 2, or 3. Namco Bandai is your company. But a Metroid Prime game? I'm like, they have no experience making that type of game. Like, zero. Like, they have never made any game like that before in their lives. So I'm not surprised that they had to snatch that stuff away from Namco Bandai and hand it over to Retro. Because say what do we want to, they've made 3 of those damn games. Actually, technically, they did Hunters and Pinball, so they've made 5 of them at this point. So you know, you make 5 games set in the same universe, understanding the source material and the universe and stuff. And I know a lot of those people moved away, but clearly the people who left didn't have the magic because the games they made were trash. Like that that Recore game. They're like, yeah, this is being made by some of the people who worked on Metroid Prime. I was like, yeah, well, clearly these weren't the people who had the magic, because Recore sucks. But anyway, yeah, Psychonauts 2 looked great. A lot of the indie games coming to both consoles look great. The PC gaming show was fun. Devolver Digital was also fun. I'm looking forward to Shadow Warrior 3. Since I have the first reboot game and the second game, and now they got a third game coming out, so I'm looking forward to that too. So, That's it. Anything else you were like, man, I really want to see this, and they didn't talk about it. And no, I'm not going. I'm not personally going with Metroid Prime 4 because I knew they weren't going to show that. I was not in any way, shape, or form under the impression that they were going to show Metroid Prime 4.
No, I don't think there's anything. I don't think there's anything out there.
All right. So I guess that leads the final little bit, which is final thoughts. So overall, yay or nay, E3 2021, 2021? I almost said 2121, but that would mean we're all over 100 years old. And surprisingly in good shape for being over 100.
E3 is pretty much trash. Nintendo and Microsoft did okay. Yeah, there wasn't. I mean, I guess there's a built-in excuse. COVID screwed up a lot of development, so a lot of games got pushed back. Next year, that probably would have came out later this year. But
all right.
you know,
Jules?
Microsoft and Nintendo saved this year, so if anything, the Devolver Digital roasted the mostly roasted the rest of the group.
I did like the Devolver Digital's thing. I am gonna have to say that I actually like this year's E3. Even despite Nintendo not having as great a conference as I would have liked, digital presentation as I would have liked, they saved a lot of it with their treehouse, giving more information about certain games. I like that. Both Microsoft and Sony with their extended coverage after the fact was a smart move. Like Microsoft did well by stealing what Nintendo usually does and doing their own spin on it, which was a smart move on their part. I like this format. I don't think we need to go back to having renting out huge spaces and the big pomp and circumstance bullshit. I don't I don't think that is conducive to what E3 should be. E3 shouldn't be about making your investors happy. E3 should be about trying to sell your product to the public. I will say there was one hilarious thing at E3 that I didn't expect to see, which was Tommy Tallarico, the CEO of the Intellivision Amico, tried to hype that thing out. Now, don't forget, the Amico was supposed to come out 18 months ago. It was supposed to come out. It was supposed to come out the year before last, and then they pushed it back to last year, and they pushed it back again to this year. And I don't think it's going to come out this year. And there's just a whole bunch of scammy shit going on with that new console. And believe it or not, the marketing for it is kind of like the Wii U. It's like the people that Nintendo fired for marketing the Wii U went over to the Intellivision Amico and said, "We can help you push this new console." And it's really bad. I mean, if you get a chance, go on YouTube and look up Intellivision Amico E3 trailer, E3 presentation. It is really bad how bad this. It's also kind of funny, but mostly bad. So that was kind of a surprise for me. Any other surprises? Game surprises. Oh, I tell you a game that I thought that I wanted to see at this year's E3 and didn't see, and that was I heard that they were gonna show off Saints Row 5.
Even I wasn't. Even I didn't hold my hopes up that high.
Well, apparently it's been in development since 2018. So it's roughly almost 4 years at this point. But maybe they're pushing it back for next year. As a Saints Row fan, I played the first game. I never beat it, but I have the second game, the third game, the fourth game, the fifth game expansion, Get Out of Hell. Like I have all of those games, and I really enjoy them a lot. So seeing a sequel, I'm just like, yeah, I would love to play a sequel. Hopefully they'll get rid of the superpowers and make the game a little bit more grounded. Looking forward to that. Um, Knock on wood. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed this year's E3. I think they need to keep the format for next year. Stop wasting people's time and money buying up spaces in San Diego or LA, wherever they have E3. I know it's somewhere in like San Diego or LA or Anaheim. I forget where it is. Van Nuys. I can't remember. The only place I've been the only place of LA I've been to is LAX, because I had to do a stopover where they had to refuel my airplane so that I could hit Hawaii and then fly from there to Japan. So forgive me if I've never really been into California and have no desire to. I have relatives who live there though. At least I think last time I checked. But yeah, those are my choices. With that being said, I guess we have to go to last topic, which is, I guess we can get to A-hole of the week. So who wants to go with A-hole of the week?
I'll make it easy enough. For me, it would be scalpers, basically, because as much as I like seeing the competition handicapped, I mean, as much as I see some things jacked from others and sold to jerks for high prices, it's still scummy that these people exist to make it hard to find some good stuff. And I'm talking for the Xbox and PlayStation folk.
Fair enough.
Kenoshi?
Yeah, I was about to say Kenoshi.
I would agree with that. They're just making it difficult for people to get a hold of stuff, whether that be graphics cards or consoles. And I just hope they find a way to stop these people.
They must be stopped. They must be found and beaten with a bamboo stick, preferably on the feet. My a-hole of the week is gonna be Todd Howard.
Gonna say, I was trying to evade Poking Tom. What did he do this time?
The reason I'm gonna say my a-hole of the week is Todd Howard because he said some shit that even as he said it was a fucking lie. Now here's what Todd Howard said. He said that focusing only on one platform means that we can have better graphical fidelity on that one platform. I was like, that's bullshit, because every Bethesda software game that's been a huge, massive RPG has been a broken, buggy piece of shit. Even back in the day when they only focused on PC, it was a single broken piece of shit. So, like, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that, I'm not surprised, like, the fact that this man would go up there and say, yeah, now that we only have to focus on one console, everything's going to be great on, it's bullshit. It's total and complete bullshit. Like Starfield is going to come out next year, and it's going to have major issues. It's going to be broken. You know, it is. So the fact that Todd would say that with a straight face is laughable to me. And then to also say that Starfield is made using the Creation Engine 2.
This barcode has to go in there in case it gets lost or something, then that will be in there and they'll know who it
Greetings,
is.
my beautiful lovelies. It's Emmy. How are you? It's great to see prescriptions to me in college.
So, yeah, just the fact that this man is up here lying. And the worst thing is, I'm not even giving the a-hole of the week to him. I'm giving it to the people who believe him, the fans who are like, yeah, this is totally a fact. I'm like, come on, man. How many times have you guys been played by Todd and Bethesda? Too many times.
So, fans of Todd or the scalpers.
From Lent, and he charges it up and turns it into a wand of.
I mean, like, here's the thing. Scalpers have been scalping for years. Anytime you have something that people perceive as being valuable, there will be a-holes who will buy it up in order to sell it at a higher price after the fact. That's bad. But to have someone come out and blatantly lie to you, and to tell you the same lie over and over and over again, and people believe it over and over again, is amazing. So for that reason, I'm nominating Todd Howard from Bethesda as my a-hole of the week, just because. Come on, man. We all know what's going on here. We all know the score. But that's just my opinion. So anyway, what do you guys think about it? I mean, clearly Todd Howard lost because both of you guys nominated scalpers, so I got to roll with scalpers. But
the thing is,
Yeah.
I'm so used to Todd Howard lying. And plus, I don't really like a lot of Bethesda games, anyway. But again, it's just obviously when they were working just mainly on Xbox, those games were still broken.
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know whether.
I mean, even before that, like every game, like back in the day with the original Elder Scrolls games, and they were just on PC, they were broken. So it's like, like even back then, it's like people would tell you, don't get Bethesda games year one. Wait until the Game of the Year edition comes out with all the patches and stuff to make them stable and playable and all that stuff. Nah. But I agree. The a-hole of the week is our scalpers, because 2 for scalpers, 1 for Todd Howard, and the 2 outweigh the 1. So scalpers.
Yeah, it's just that. If anything, Todd Howard's too easy of a target.
Yeah, but just because something is easy, sometimes you gotta aim for it. I could have said PlayStation 5, PS5 fanboys who are mad that a first-party company is using the fact that they own a company. They own Bethesda. How dare they make their big budget games only be on their home console? I mean, that's like people getting mad at, well, people do get mad at Nintendo. I want to play Mario, but I don't want to own a Nintendo console. Well, I hate to break this to you, Junior, but that's just the way things are. And I'm using Junior as a pejorative statement. As in someone's a kid and being naive. So with that being said, anything else you guys, any other topics you guys want to bring up before we wrap things up? Nothing? No one has any topics of the week they want to bring up?
To be honest with you, I honestly am questioning if we should see about what maybe what's the first game we might get from this E3.
I already know what I'm getting. Psychonauts 2. Psychonauts 2, because that's coming out in August. And then I'm getting Metroid Dread, that's October. And then
I'll try to get Monster Hunter 2. I mean, Monster Hunter Stories 2.
Yeah, I recently went back and I tried to get into Monster Hunter 1. It just, that game just doesn't click with me. I'm sorry. Then Megaten 5. Basically, my year is still going to be filled up with games that I got. And I mean, one good thing about COVID-19 and being stuck in the house, I could totally get through my backlog of games.
Is that what that game is called in Japan? Megaten?
Oh, that's a short. It's Shin Megami Tensei, but I don't feel like always saying Shin Megami Tensei.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
the short term is Megaten. Megaten 2, Megaten 3, Megaten 4, Megaten 5.
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought most people would say SMT.
SMT is what they write when they don't want to write Shin Megami Tensei, but if you're in Japan, they'll shorten it to Megaten.
I actually like that better.
Shin Megami Tensei. Megaten.
Yeah. I actually like that better. Sounds cooler.
So I call it Megaten, Megaten 5, Megaten. That's what I call it. So I'm really because I liked Megaten 4. I did not like except here's my problem with Shin Megami Tensei. The thing that kind of bothers me with the series, Shin Megami Tensei will come up with a really interesting concept within the game that's more interesting than the actual game itself. Like in Shin Megami Tensei 4, there's a part in the game where you're going through alternate realities of what could possibly happen, and one of them is where the apocalypse happened and humans and demons have to live together in this post-apocalyptic world. And I'm like, this would be a really interesting game. Why are we doing this story, which kind of sucks? It's like, that's kind of the problem with Shin Megami Tensei. It's kind of the weaknesses of the series, the franchise. But maybe the next game will be better. I don't know. It looked cool. It looked cool that your main character basically turns into the atavism of the Mazuku from Yu Yu Hakusho. And hopefully the story will be not quite as dark as usual. Because another issue with the Shin Megami Tensei series is that the stories are kind of really hardcore, dark. So that's my opinion. Anything else anyone else has to say about it before we wrap thing up? Before we wrap everything up? Nothing? Okay.
I think that we're good.
All right.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so that's the end of the podcast. Anything you guys want to pep out before we close it out?
Not that I know of on the spot, but at least it's good to know that we still got things that we could still talk about. So next week, hopefully, will be something different.
Yeah, we can talk about other stuff next week. I mean, there's always video game news coming out. There's Fallout coming out. There's leaks.
I just remembered. There's more Earth. If anybody's, if you're on YouTube talking trash about Earth 2, headaches. I'm just telling you that now because there's one thing, because those guys are going all out trying to erase people from the internet that hate on that are talking about Earth 2 in a negative light.
Earth 2, that's that strategy game.
It's that quote unquote game that has you try to buy real digital real estate of an entire planet, our planet, using encrypted currency, and also it has people that are underage working on it, and at any time the the people that are behind the game could take your property, leaving you with zero money.
Oh, snap. Man, okay, one thing. You know what? Let's redo A-hole of the week for 1 second, because I just remembered the best A-hole of the week. The first, these people who keep on saying that there was going to be a Switch Pro announced at E3.
No false prophets this past year and a half.
Wait, really?
Those people, they're like, yeah, there's gonna be a Switch Plus. There's gonna be a Switch Plus. Yeah, Nintendo, their system that's like their hybrid system that still, if you combine the sales of their highest selling home console and their highest selling handheld and combine them, like this system's only about a third of those combined sales of both of those devices. But like not a third, like maybe 40%. That's pretty respectable. But still, they're gonna sacrifice their high selling ninth gen console slash handheld hybrid device. They're gonna sabotage that and announce new hardware. They're gonna pull a Sega with the Sega Saturn. Are you stupid?
You honestly pulled me, and I will say this to everyone that said about the Switch Pro coming out on this E3. I give you not only the A-hole of the week, but a double salute. The double middle finger salute, that is.
They are the a-holes of the week for me. I had to add that in because it really, that is some fantastic stuff. Because people are still rolling with it. Like, yeah, there's gonna be a new. Yeah, man, there's gonna be a new. I'm like, come on, man.
I mean,
And
this
you
is
know
the
what?
problem.
I
This
need
is
to
the problem they
harvest
had during the
tears.
Wii. This is the problem they had during the Wii U. Is everybody wanted this ultra powerful Nintendo console. I mean, it's just unfortunately what people want out of Nintendo. Is they want them to be as powerful as Microsoft and Sony as it pertains to hardware.
Look, the only time you had that was with the 6th gen with the GameCube. And the GameCube arguably was a little bit weaker than the original Xbox, but far and above the PS2. And I mean, I love the GameCube. It had some great games, but it didn't get nearly the third-party support that the PS2 got. So people need to stop with that shit.
Yeah, and I was about to say, thank you for allowing me to. Thank you, Red, for allowing me to change that a-hole of the week from scalpers to the Switch Pro people.
And they're still talking about it.
And if excuse me, I think it's time for me to harvest some tears.
They're still like, man, there's gonna be a Switch Pro. They're like, yeah, well, you know, and when Nintendo didn't mention it, well, there's gonna be a Switch Pro announced eventually. That's like a dude saying, eventually, this girl who said that she would never sleep with me, even if I was the last man on Earth. Even if there were no one else but just her and me, she still wouldn't sleep with me. But eventually, maybe one day, it's like, no, man, just stop. Stop it. Stop. But
yeah, it's kind of like that phrasing of how you try to get how your how this guy's trying to get a girlfriend all this time, and she's been going with somebody else. You gotta stop.
She's
You
told
lost.
you she's not interested. Stop it. She said she's not interested. Stop doing it.
Yeah, and if anything, I'm I'm due to collect some salts from those pro fans.
Those salty tears. Anyway, that's my opinion. Yeah, we changed it. So it went from being scalpers to these Switch Pro rumor mongers. They
Yeah,
just knew it was going to be a thing. Come on, man. Look, listen. If Nintendo announces a successor to the Switch Pro, they're probably not going to make the Switch Pro. It's probably just going to be the successor to the Switch. Just saying. That's probably what they're going to do. Like, the Wii was basically a Super GameCube. And you could use GameCube games on it. I wouldn't be surprised if you could just use the Switch games on the new Switch, whatever. The new Nintendo hardware. Be a smart move. But that's my own personal opinion. Anyway, those are my thoughts. That's the end. That's the end of the podcast. Rate, comment, share,
don't
subscribe.
forget to rate, comment, share, subscribe.
And as always,
Whether it's E3, Christmas, or whenever, hype responsibly.
that is correct. Good night. Peace. Happy Father.